If I search your name in a Google search, number one every single time that'll come up will be your LinkedIn profile. So the very first impression they're going to get of you is going to be your LinkedIn profile. It better be world class.
Do not be that guy that is just connecting with people and pitching straight away. Build relationships, try to provide value, come up with a way to collaborate, and then see where that can lead to.
Big mistake that often gets made on profiles is
that what you mentioned there is one of the things that I find the most annoying from LinkedIn.
The most known will always outperform being the best. You've just got to be that most known person within your area of expertise. Pick your niche, pick your lane, and stay there.
Absolutely right.
And there's nothing that will destroy your brand quicker than...
Welcome back to another episode. Today, as usual, we have a legendary guest in the house. He's a best-selling author. He's a LinkedIn expert and the founder and CEO of Prominence Global. Please welcome the absolute legend, Adam Houlihan. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Let's just dive straight into it. What makes LinkedIn better than other social media platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'd say it's necessarily better than any other platforms, but it's got a specific use. So if your target market is on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn is one of the key platforms where you can not only really easily connect with those people, but engage with them through private messaging, put out great content for them, and really just position yourself as like the leading authority in whatever industry you're in. And if you understand at least some basics of the algorithms of how LinkedIn works, then you can get probably better organic traction on LinkedIn than any other platform.
Why is LinkedIn your platform of choice?
Well, it's interesting because when I first started, I was actually working for another company. The only time in my life I actually had a job, and I was sort of got to a point where I wanted to transition back into my own business. And in this role that I had, I was kind of the managing director of an organic skincare company of all things. And I was researching around the world, other companies doing similar things, what platforms they were using. And the more and more I did that, the more I found, and this is like over 10 years ago, the more I found that LinkedIn just made sense to me. I just had an intuitive sort of way to understand it. And it's not an easy platform, as you know, it's an easy platform to get wrong. And so the more and more I just delved into LinkedIn, the more it made sense to me. And then I just started using it myself to sort of find clients to come into our business. And I think when we started, it was just myself, and I had one amazing team member in the Philippines. It was just the two of us. Roll forward 10 years, and now we're a global team. We just 100% focus on LinkedIn, and the clients we get the privilege to work with around the world are always just they're obviously entrepreneurs. They're the owners of amazing businesses. And they just understand that LinkedIn is where their market is, and that they just need to have a really strong presence on there.
Do you feel like LinkedIn is an underrated platform?
Well, there's 1 billion people on LinkedIn now, so I wouldn't say it's underrated, but it's misunderstood. Let's just say that, and I think that's getting better and better. But the days of having a what we call a social strategy, where you can just create some content and put it out across multiple platforms, is getting harder and harder to do that, because each platform has its own way of working. So you've got to have what we call a LinkedIn strategy these days. And if you do that, and if you focus on it as its own individual platform, then you can get amazing results.
Should founders and business owners be posting on LinkedIn?
Oh, 100%. So the platform is there, and I think the key thing is really not as to whether they should or shouldn't, but what type of content that they should be using. So it's not really a platform that you want to be using for lots of, say, marketing style content. The content that's really going to get the traction is content that positions each of us individually as, the go-to person in our industries. So niches, essentially, you've got to be very focused in on a niche of the market, and that niche is somewhat whatever industry you're in, but usually a sub niche of that, a niche within a niche. So the more sort of granular you can get like that, the more you can get a message to a market that clearly understands what you're about, and they just then naturally want to find out more and more about you.
You have written some books on LinkedIn. That's the level of expertise that you have when it comes to understanding this platform and getting results on it. What would you say are the three biggest lessons that anyone can get from reading your books?
Well, there's two different books that are LinkedIn specific. And so there's the LinkedIn Playbook, and as it says, it's basically the blueprint of how you kind of get going on LinkedIn. The second one that I've got out is called Influencer, and it's the 9 steps of how you then not only have that presence on LinkedIn, but how you then parlay that into you being a person of influence. More so, the influencer is probably not a great term to use these days, for me at least, just simply because it brings up different connotations of what people think of. So like an Instagram influencer, fantastic, but being a person of influence is very different to being an influencer. And so the book, basically explains that.
Absolutely. And from there, what are 3 tactical things that a founder or a business owner can implement to grow on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so we have like a 4-step methodology, but there's 3 key steps. The first one is your profile. You've just got to have a really professional profile that speaks to your audience in a certain way. And the big mistake that often gets made on profiles is we naturally think we want to talk all about ourselves. A really well-crafted LinkedIn profile talks all about your audience, like who your market is and how you serve that market. So that's step 1. Step 2 then becomes finding and connecting with all of your ideal market. Now, wherever they are in the world. Now, one of the key things with LinkedIn is we can be as granular as a postcode if we needed to be, or we can go as wide as in the entire world. Or at least all the 200 odd countries that are on LinkedIn. And no matter where your market is, then you've got the ability to, connect directly with them. And again, the best thing to be doing is connecting with those people, not so much that you want to go and then immediately sales pitch them with anything, more so that they're going to be seeing your content and seeing what you're about. And then, of course, that's what step 3 is just consistently put out this really high quality content that kind of positions you as the go-to expert in whatever your field of expertise is.
That what you mentioned there on the second point is one of the things that I find the most annoying from LinkedIn is when you have a new connection and then you're straight pitching at you. It's like, man, maybe let's start with potentially collaborating together or really do an in-depth research to see if I'm looking for that specific service or if I truly will feed your ideal customer. Because many times I get DMs of people just trying to pitch me on something that I'm not even a good fit for that, or I'm far removed from looking from those services. So what's a really good way to approach a new connection on LinkedIn in order to potentially get a result of deals or book them on a call or just bring them off the platform so you can start getting those relationships started?
Yeah, it's the perfect question. It's and the key is what you just said there at the end of moving them off LinkedIn. So really what LinkedIn should be used for is exactly that. Find those ideal people, start a dialogue with them that's not a sales pitch, because we've all experienced that. And you can count on one hand how many times you've ever responded, let alone actually taken those people up on the offer. I think you could count on one finger more than one hand. So a good strategy is, connect with those ideal people, give them a reason why you're connecting. That's not a sales pitch. You just want to say, hey, I'm interested in what you do, or I saw your content, it really resonated with me, whatever that might be. And then, of course, just thank them for connecting. Just common manners. It's really simple stuff. And then, but look at it from the perspective that if you understand the algorithms and how they work, is those new people that you connect with or connect with you are going to start seeing your content straight away, because that's how the algorithms work. So you need to be posting consistent content. 3 times a week is kind of good. And you want to be thinking, well, I'm not needing to sales pitch straight away. What I need is these people to be consuming my content, seeing what I'm about, seeing that, I know what I'm talking about. And then at a point, have a strategy where you might reach out with a high value reason that they would want to come off LinkedIn and, have a conversation with you, or come to your webinar, or come to your live event, or download your book, or whatever that next step looks like. But you don't want to be doing that straight away. You want them to be able to just ease into seeing your content, get an idea that you are an authority in what you do, and then they willingly want to take those next steps.
Absolutely. And what you just said there is exactly what we do as well with clients, and what we promote the most, right? Is LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, all these platforms are what we call a rented audience, right? You're there to get the reach, build some connections, start some conversations, but you want as much as possible to then get those conversations off the platform to a more owned type of platform. That could be, obviously, your podcast is one of those, your RSS feed, your newsletters as well. And as you said, getting some high value resources so that then you can put them on a database and continue to obviously build those connections and take them through the next steps and whatever your strategy or your funnel looks like in order to get a conversion in it. And by the way, this podcast episode is the perfect example of how to do a good outreach in the platform, because the way we got in touch with you was through LinkedIn, a LinkedIn DM, right? And my team sent a DM giving you enough information to know that, hey, we're not trying to sell you anything. We see that you're clearly an expert on the subject, and we're looking for someone to bring on the podcast. It's a collaboration, and this is what you can get out of it as a part of that collaboration. This is where how we're going to distribute that content, the kind of repurposing. So it hasn't been anything selling. It was giving compliments and just giving options. And by the way, we know he's busy, right? He's closing deals, he's talking to people. That's all he does is within the platform. So he will have a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, you will have a lot of people reaching out to you, trying to get you to do something for them, inquiring about your services. So you wouldn't have a lot of time to be responding to things. So you need to know straight away, what is this about? Is this a good fit even for what I do, for what they do? And just make this information easy as well to digest. We put everything up front so that that person as well can make a decision in terms of, this is something I'll be interested to do. And look what I took. It's like you made it all the way here.
Exactly. And you did it absolutely perfectly. And I think the key thing in what you did was you acknowledged straight away, hey, we know you're busy. We'd love to get together and do this, but when is that going to suit you? It wasn't. What often happens is people will reach out and they say, we've had someone cancel and we've got a slot open tomorrow, and it's like, yeah, well, I don't. So that was the perfect way to do that, and that's exactly right. The people are busy, and then LinkedIn, you're not expecting people, or shouldn't at least expect people to potentially respond to you same day. It might take 2 days or 3 days for people to get around to it. But the beauty is your message, whatever, when you send it, is sitting there top of, as soon as they do go to their message notifications, it's there. They can read it. They can, they can read it and respond. They can read it, ignore, or they could delete it. So you've got to craft that message in a way exactly how you just explained, that makes it very obvious that this is about a collaboration, or it's about a two-way value, and then you'll get good responses.
Moral of the story: do not be that guy that is just connecting with people and pitching straight away. Okay,
Exactly.
build relationships, try to provide value, come up with a way to collaborate, and then see where that can lead to. There's over 1 billion users on LinkedIn right now. Is it too late to grow on the platform?
Not at all. LinkedIn's goals are to have 3 billion people on there. So they're only a third of the way there. But also, remember, even though there's 1 billion people on there, you're not competing with all 1 billion plus of those people. You're only competing with a small number of those people. So your task really is to dominate that one little space. And as an example, you don't need to dominate the entire world of, for you guys, you don't need to dominate every podcast agency in the world. You just need to dominate that sector of the world that you work in. So when you kind of, as I said, niche within niches and come down, that area that you're trying to dominate in is not as massive as what people first get overwhelmed thinking it is, and that's just a matter then of just being the. I have a saying is that being the most known will always outperform being the best. So that's the point. You've just got to be that most known person within your area of expertise, within where your market is. And even your market in most cases is going to be a subset of an entire market. Nobody owns or is able to collaborate with an entire market. So yeah, just pick your niche, pick your lane, and stay there.
Absolutely right. And it's way easier as well to build your authority and that expertise, that top of mind awareness, if you commit to that one field of expertise. And guess what? When people are talking about you or talking about your podcast, your LinkedIn profile, they will probably not even remember your name, but they will remember what you do. Oh, yeah, that's the podcast guy. Oh, that's the LinkedIn expert, right? So make it easy for people to know who you are and what you do. And guess what? You will attract the right people as well to your services because you're a specialist in it. So people will rather work with a specialist, especially if that's a big problem that you're solving in your specific market, rather than trying to work with someone that is not very clear what exactly they do in it.
Yeah, it's different, as you said, between being a generalist or a specialist. Or another way to put it is, the difference between being for say a doctor being the GP or the heart surgeon. So, and often we use that analogy. Like people come to us and say, "Well, why are you different?" And we say, "Well, we're the heart surgeons of LinkedIn, not the general practitioner." So that's exactly right. You just got to really have that niche of expertise and just stick with it. Don't be talking one day about, it's not the platform that's kind of your social platform. People are not there to know about what you did on the weekend or that holiday you're going on next week or anything like that. There are other platforms that do that really well. But LinkedIn, people are there, and LinkedIn themselves want your content to be just all about adding value from a business perspective.
Absolutely. Aside from the mistakes we have covered so far, what's the biggest mistake you see business owners make when trying to grow on LinkedIn?
Well, the first one you've already pointed out, that connect and pitch. So apart from that's the biggest, but apart from that, it's not taking a long enough view to things, having too short a timeline on things. We even say to our clients, it's a minimum 90-day journey. We can't take you from zero to the most known person in your industry overnight. People, you have to get connected with people. You have to be putting out content consistently. The algorithms need to pick up what you're doing and start showing you to the right people in the right searches. So it's a minimum 90-day sort of journey. And then, of course, it depends on what is your strategy where you move people off LinkedIn and into a next step. So the key mistake really is actually trying to sell on LinkedIn instead of using it as that platform to get yourself known as the go-to person in your industry, and have a strategy where people will willingly come off LinkedIn and into that into your ecosystem.
Absolutely. And something that we always explain to clients It is really cool to get 1 million views, get thousands of followers, but ultimately quality does matter more than those vanity metrics if your goal is also to make business out of this, right? Because you want to be speaking to the right people. No one will probably trade getting 100,000 followers of the wrong audience that are not gonna buy from you. They're not really invested into, or 100,000 connections, right? Compared to getting maybe 1,000 that are super qualified and that are exactly looking for the service and the offers that you have set up in your backend.
Yeah, exactly right. And one of the ways LinkedIn controls that is there's actually a limit on how many connections you can have. It's 30,000, which is a fair limit, but it bodes exactly what you said. Quality, trumps quantity on LinkedIn every time. And so yes, far better to have a smaller group of absolute the right type of people than just the vanity metrics of oh, I've got the most followers or I've got the most connections, because you can't have the most connections. It's a hard limit, 30,000. You can have more followers, but there's not as much you can interact with, engage with on LinkedIn with followers. It's all about the amount of really high quality, what they call first degree connections.
And by the way, something that you mentioned before, this is extremely important if you're looking to get great results and monetize your field of expertise. This applies to every single social media platform, is that you need to have a solid backend. Do not expect a miracle or building, making millions of dollars every single month straight from your platforms if you don't have a solid backend system that is also selling and solving a big problem for that specific industry, that you have a solid sales process, that you have a streamlined funnel and step-by-step on how do you make conversions, how do you take attention to actually be a buyer or a conversion within your business. So stop asking, agencies, LinkedIn agencies, podcast agencies for miracles if you don't even have a great offer, an irresistible or knockout offer, how we call them, in the backend, and a streamlined process where just more people need to know about you, right? To the point that and the right people, if more of them knew who you are and what you do, and you speak to their problems and their desires, chances are you're gonna close way more deals, right? But in order for that to happen, you need to have a solid backend system. Question for you. What are the 3 best features to grow on LinkedIn?
Well, believe it or not, our most successful clients all have podcasts. So having a podcast that not necessarily that you're 100% focused on that as part of what you're doing on LinkedIn, but that way to move your ideal audience off the platform and into either subscribing to your podcast or actually being a guest on your podcast, like as you did, finding the right type of people to reach out to get as guests on your podcast. LinkedIn is almost the best platform on the planet for doing that. And we have a number of clients where their whole strategy is around getting people as guests onto the podcast. But of course, the people that they're getting as guests are these founders and CEOs of organizations, where what actually it's a two-way win-win. So the CEO or the founder, he's getting featured on a podcast. It's good for him or her. It's good for you as the podcast host. But it also gives you an opportunity to have a one-to-one conversation about how your products or service actually help them. And of course, the only people you're inviting to be guests on your podcast are those people who you solve a problem for. So that's definitely one of the 3 key ones. The second one is really about just getting people to come to events. So online events, live events, things like that. So your entire conversion strategy on LinkedIn is as simple as just reaching out and say, hey, I've got this event on next week. It's tailor-made for you for these reasons. I'd love you to just come along as my guest. And so people are willingly moving into that next step. And of course, what you mentioned earlier is how important it is to then have a really solid back end. So that back end has to come off that event. So people come to the event, they then come, fill out an application form or something that gives more information, or booking calls with your sales team, whatever that might be. So events is also super powerful. And then the third is really just to make sure that they somehow end up on your database. As you mentioned earlier, you really rent your social platforms, including LinkedIn. You never own them. So the only thing you can control is things like your websites, CRMs, RSS feed, all that type of stuff. So our strategy is always around doing something to get people onto that into that CRM. Now, the strategy we use is usually around assessments. So we created all of these things that say, hey, you can fill out this questionnaire and it's going to show you how well you're doing on LinkedIn, or fill out this questionnaire and it's going to show you how well you're doing with your content strategy, or whatever it might be. And then one adds value to the people doing that assessment, and it puts them into your database. So that's the key three things I'd say.
Absolutely. I love what you said as well regarding podcasts, because we have found that LinkedIn is one of the best platforms, as you said, to reach out to these really high level people that chances are their DMs might be completely crowded and oversaturated on Instagram. Maybe they're not even on TikTok or some of these other platforms. You can't really reach out to someone directly on YouTube. So LinkedIn, we have found, is one of those hidden ways of actually getting really high level people as a guest on your podcast. And the response rate as well is way higher compared to any other way of trying to reach out, either email or LinkedIn. We have found are probably some of the best ways to try to get experts if they're on the platform as well, right? In terms of feature specific from LinkedIn in itself, from the platform, what are the three best features that people can use within the platform in order to grow?
Well, the first is the ability for you to share content. So the content platform, it has multiple kinds of content. So short form video, just your standard written content, newsletters that are internal on LinkedIn, document posts, polls, all these different types of ways to engage with people. And one of the key things of that is that your audience will resonate with some of those types of content, not all. Some people love video content. Other people like long-form newsletter types. Most people just like short, punchy, bite-sized pieces of information. So the ability to be able to do that and have all of that kind of consistently or forever tagged to your profile is super powerful. And there's good tools where you can then have all that content stored offline, in other vaults and things like that. But then if you look at the actual your profile itself, so there's a section called your featured section, and now it's not activated by default. You've got to go into your settings and make sure that you activate it, but it allows you to put really high value content there. So it may be about your podcast or how they can subscribe to the podcast. Can be assessments, that's what we use, or anything that. Think of it as stuff that adds real value to anybody that's able to do that. And it's one of the only sections. There's only 3 sections on LinkedIn where you can put a clickable link and take people off the platform into other areas. So the featured section is super powerful. And of course, the third is that ability to just actually be connected with your audience and be able to engage with them. That's one of the key features. If you're first degree connections, then you can privately message each other. And of course, you've got to have a good strategy around how you do that. But the fact that it's so easy to do, I mean, we've all used X or Twitter, whatever they're going to call it next week. But how often do you actually even check the messages that are coming in from there, and how easily can you then get the attention of somebody? Not saying it's impossible, but it's much harder than it is to do on LinkedIn.
What's the most underrated feature within LinkedIn's platform?
Well, I think it's definitely that the ability to be connected and to if you go about it the right way, to move people off the platform. It cannot be stated enough that the big mistake, as you were talking about earlier, is all around this constant idea of, oh, I have to use the platform to sales pitch all the time. It's definitely not that. It's that ability to being connected, have them see your content on a regular basis, and then move them, off the platform. But if you put all that, like I said, what's all the value, or what's the highest value of doing all of that? It's the fact, the ability for you to be seen as that leading authority in your industry, which is all about how you position your profile. And the key thing that everyone should really, if they're not already aware, that if I search your name, like in a Google search, number one every single time that'll come up will be your LinkedIn profile. So even if you're not using the platform for lead generation or stuff like that, the fact that even if you might be just at a high level having a meeting with somebody that you've never met before. Now we all do it. If I'm going to have a meeting with, like, for example, with us today. So when you guys reached out and said, of course I'm going to look at your profile and see what it's all about. So if someone, you're going to have a meeting with someone, and the very first impression they're going to get of you is going to be your LinkedIn profile, it better be world class.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. And you should do that across all platforms, right? Especially if you're a founder, business owner, someone that wants to be that authority or go-to person. Your profiles matter. People should come into it and instantly get some level of credibility of what you do. And having a good profile photo, a good banner that it briefly explains what you do, and any relevant call to action will massively improve the perception that you're putting out there, as well as the quality of conversations and even the response rate, right? Because if someone reaches out to you, they have no profile picture, they have some random statement that is a little bit confusing, there is no link to even look at the websites, where chances are people are not going to take you seriously, they're not going to reply to you. Or if you have a terrible photo, they might not they might think of you like a much less status maybe to what you are, right? So just be a little bit more professional with how you come across. Think, if you were the person on the opposite end, would you answer your message? That's always a question that I try to get my team and myself asking before trying to make a connection or before trying to reach out to someone is, would I reply to this? Does this looks legitimate? Do I come across as a credible person or on my field of expertise? Is this message clear, or do I look like a scamp? Right?
True.
Is that?
Yeah, look, 100% I agree with everything you've said there. I'd even suggest that you go one step beyond that. Think about it from the point of view that you are going to end up in a conversation with that person, whether that's face-to-face, on Zoom, whatever it is. And again, if we talk about mistakes, one of the key mistakes I see at this point is people have a fantastic professional-looking profile, even down to probably a headshot that they've had a professional photographer take or whatever. But if that headshot is really out of date, then if you, like 10 years ago or something like that, obviously we all want to look our best and what we looked like 10, 20 years ago. But imagine when you get into that conversation with that person for the first time. And I've had this happen many, many times. I've spoken about it at events and things where I've had people reach out to me. I live on the Gold Coast, which is, a lot of people come to the Gold Coast for holidays. They know I'm here. They'll reach out and say, is there a chance we could catch up over a coffee or beer or whatever? And so my only real understanding of what that person's going to look like is their profile image. Now, if I turn up to that meeting and that person is much older than what I'm expecting, then what actually happens is it breaks trust. And so people immediately, and you can almost feel it, they step away from you. They literally take a step backwards because they're getting something different to what they were expecting.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. Don't catfish, okay? Just be okay. If you got a little bit older, just get some updated, up to date photos. Okay, there has to be congruency.
Correct.
That's what I keep repeating to my clients, to my team, is from the very first interaction, we want to make sure that everything has congruency all the way to the very end, right? Whether that's a relationship that we're just building for network or connections, or it's someone that we're hoping that is going to go from cold to warm and be a conversion or become a client in itself. We need to have congruency across the entire journey, because at any point you are not fulfilling the little promises that you make, and your profile photo being one of them. You promise me that this is how you look, right? If you break any of those along the way, you're slowly dialing back the trust level that they will have for you, and in turn, probably you're not gonna get that conversion, or you're not gonna be able to build that relationship because you're already lying with something as little as your profile picture, right? What's the best strategy to get qualified leads on LinkedIn?
Well, it's always a content strategy. It's always, as we've talked about, that consistent output of content that does exactly what you were just mentioning, builds that know, like, and trust factor. So you're getting connected is how the people get to know who you are. Your content is how they decide whether they like what you're about or not. And the trust factor comes from how you treat them from that point on. So, break that trust by going in too early with, sales pitches and things like that. That's it. You've broken the trust. But do that in a much more congruent way. Then that's the key. Get to the point where there's enough trust that they want to take that next step. They're willingly coming off LinkedIn. And the other thing we really underrate and forget about is that not every single person that we connect with are by any means going to become a conversion. However, there's a massive market who are like your advocates. So they become your referral partners. I get it all the time with people. They'll talk to a friend or whatever. It's I'm thinking about getting some help with some LinkedIn stuff. Who do you know anyone? I'm connected to this person, and they become these advocates and referral partners. So don't think that every single connection you should only look at them as potential leads. They are, but they won't all convert. So make sure the ones that don't, still have enough trust in you that they want to be your promotion party. They're out there to sing your praises on your behalf. So it's a very much often forgotten part of that value proposition.
Absolutely. And guess what? Even if you make a connection and they don't turn into a potential customer, chances are, if it's the right person, they probably know someone or someone within their network or circle that will fit that category as well, and be a potential conversion in itself. So it's super, super important to always remember, don't underestimate as well of even asking the question if you've been providing value, like, hey, by the way, I know you are X and I help X get XYZ. Do you happen to know anyone that could benefit from that? That's just a simple way of asking for the referral. And guess what? If they are interested, they will also let you know, I'm actually looking for that too. How can we, engage into a conversation and move forward? LinkedIn has now a short form video feed. What's the best way for business owners to maximize this feature?
Look, it's in rollout at the moment, so not everybody has that feature yet. When LinkedIn releases new things like this, it goes through what they call 5 waves. So it might take up to 3, even 6 months for the entire world to get access to those features. But of course, yes, it's early days. Now, to be honest, it's one that I believe is in beta test, meaning that it's not even 100% guarantee that it will stay on the platform forever. They're just testing out to see whether the LinkedIn audience likes it or not. So the key of getting good traction on it, if you've got access to it now, or when you get access to it in the near future, is don't forget that this is not TikTok. This is not the other platforms. So even though it kind of smells like TikTok, you still have to maintain it as a a professional kind of short form video. It's not an entertainment thing. It's there as another tool you can use to increase that know, like, trust factor for people.
Absolutely. This is extremely important. If you're a founder, business owner, and you're looking to grow your personal brand, your connections on LinkedIn, do not be dancing like a monkey on the short form video feed. That's not the platform for it. What works to grow on TikTok and platforms like Instagram is completely different on a platform like LinkedIn, like you just said, is way more professional, is way more about education type of content, providing value. So do not be dancing if you really want to be taken seriously as a field expert and obviously grow within the platform. What are some LinkedIn algorithm hacks to fast track your growth within the platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first one that you probably want to understand is an algorithm called dwell time. And what dwell time is it tracks how you interact with content in your feed. So it's very rare that people would go on their LinkedIn profile and think, oh, I wonder what Adam's posting today, and go to my profile. They're going to rely on content showing up in their feeds. So the dwell time algorithm tracks, when you scroll through content and when you stop, and then it also tracks, as you know, well, if you look at content on LinkedIn, it's truncated to start with, meaning you can only see the first sentence, maybe two sentences, and then it has a little tab saying "see more." So the holy grail of a content strategy has to be around that very first click, meaning see more, because that way you've activated the first part of dwell time, which means that you've stopped scrolling, you've got enough interest in it to click see more to see the rest of the content. So think about it like copywriting 101. That very first sentence just needs to be really compelling enough for people to want to click the see more and read the rest of the content. So that's the first one. The second one that I say is a must know, that's something you really got to understand, is how the content then, let's say you get past that first stage of dwell time, then what happens is your content's only sort of seen by a small percentage of your connections and followers, somewhere around 8%. And there's no way you can do anything to hack who those 8% are. However, what they will likely be are the people that are in the same time zone as you. So even though you might have a global audience, you need to still have a bit of a local audience so that they're likely to see your content. And essentially, you've got a 2-hour window from when you post your content to get people to actually engage on that content. So the algorithm hack is that you need to create the content in a way that it asks a question. Make it really easy for people to engage on the content. Again, big mistake I see in content is it might be really great content, but I might read it and go, yeah, that was interesting, but there's nothing that compels me to like it or comment on it. So you've got to always, if you have a look at my content, you'll see the very last line is always a question, because it makes it easy for people to engage on it. And if you get people engaging on it in that first 2 hours, then the algorithm opens it up, and then your entire audience are able to see the content. So they're the two critical ones.
Should business owners focus on building a personal brand or a business brand?
Well, both. However, the personal brand is 90% of the value and 10% the business brand. So we always say, yes, you should have a company presence on LinkedIn, but if you're time poor, you can't do everything, then the personal brand is going to trump it every single time.
Why do you suggest the personal brand instead of the company brand?
Well, a company brand, people can't engage easily with a company. And in reality, they initially want to engage with us as the individuals. It's only when they've got that know, like, trust factor in us that they'll become interested in what we do, or what our company's about or our business is about. So focusing on, also you'll see content-wise in your feed, not take out the ads, because they're always going to be there, but apart from that, the very high majority of content you'll see is from individuals more so than company pages. So just visibility wise, it's 10 times more visible than the company pages.
Absolutely. And guess what as well? Your personal brand will be transferred to many other businesses, ideas, offers that you might have, right? Because people believe in you as the human behind it. So you can see it with the biggest thought leaders in the world right now: Gary Vaynerchuk, Alex Hormozi, Grant Cardone. The list keeps going on and on. Any of these industry leaders, they can start selling shampoo tomorrow and people will still buy
Exactly.
because they trust them and they know that there is a reason why they're getting behind that specific offer, service, product. They People will buy. It doesn't matter what they do at this point because they got to that really elite status, right? Not saying that you should be trying to be Gary Vaynerchuk of Alex Hormozi, because chances are you're probably not gonna get there. There's a specific type of person and strategy to be able to get to those high level playing fields. However, think of you as the celebrity within your specific niche, right? So then you don't need millions of followers or millions of views. You just need to be really known by this thing, just like we've been covering so far on the episode. When it comes to content formats on LinkedIn, what have you found works best?
By far, what works best is to have a cross section of all content types. So not just focus on video, or not just focus on newsletters or polls or whatever. It's again, algorithmically, LinkedIn will reward content creators that use a good mixture of all of them, knowing full well that we talked about earlier that some people like the long form of the newsletter. Some people like the short form visual part of video. Some people like just written content. So you will get much better traction from LinkedIn's algorithms, but also from your audience, because we don't know. Everybody's an individual. We might know our client avatar or our ICPs and things like that. However, there's nothing where we can ever say I 100% know that they love video or that they love newsletters or whatever. So it'll be a cross section of all of those. The bigger you build your audience, the more cross section of people that will resonate with the different types of content. So the key is, use a mixture of all of them.
Absolutely. That's one thing of why we use video podcasts as the vehicle. Because even though we lead with the video aspect of it, we do things like getting transcriptions so that we can also nurture a database, create a newsletter. We have the audio format of it as well, so that you can cater to your specific avatar in all the different content formats. Because as you were explaining as well, some people would rather read than watching you on a video. Some people would rather the video compared to maybe just the audio format of it. So if you can create all those different content formats, you will be able to reach more of the market and meet them as well where they prefer to be talked to, right? And when it comes as well to your content system, what's your current content system to post on LinkedIn?
So the first part of that is to post 3 times per week. So algorithmically, somewhere between 3 and 5 posts a week is known to be the best volume of content. When you go beyond that, then LinkedIn's algorithms start to consider everything you're posting as marketing based. Therefore, they're going to lower your reach. So 3 times a week is great. Now, there's always the number one question that gets asked is, well, what time of day should I be posting? I've heard that the best time of day is whatever it is. And there actually isn't any such thing as a best time of day, especially if you've got a international audience. If I said to you, hey, look, you got to post at 9 a.m. on a Monday, then your response should be, well, 9 a.m. where? Because 9 a.m. in Sydney is different to in LA and Auckland and all around the world. So give up on this idea of a best time of day. The algorithm will do its job. Just focus your content on getting that initial reach, that dwell time and that activation. Then LinkedIn's going to show it. It could be a day later, 2 days later, when your audiences are actually active on LinkedIn. So the holy grail is all about making sure you don't need a high volume of content. You just need enough that's a consistent flow of content that gets that algorithmic activation, meaning that it gets that people engaging on it so that it opens up in all of your market's feeds. And then, yes, just mix it up. 3 times a week, one will be a video, one's a newsletter maybe, one's, a poll. And then the next week, it might be a little bit different. So realistically, we always say, look at a content strategy over a calendar month, not over a week, because you can only post 3 times a week, but there's 7 different types of content you can use on LinkedIn. Therefore, you can't post them all in a week. So the key is, look at your content strategy on a longer term basis than any one given week.
Absolutely. Curious to know, should business owners be paying for the premium features of LinkedIn?
You know what? Now I'd say yes. There's not a lot you can do on LinkedIn on a free account anymore. That only really came in this year. Before about February, March this year, you could get great traction on a free account. Now, as an example, connection requests. If you're on a free account, you can only send 5 a month, where you can put a reason as to why you're connecting. Now, it does allow you to send more than that, but because you can't put a message as to why you're trying to connect with someone, your acceptance rate plummets. Now, on the premium accounts, that goes from 5 a month to 200 a week. So it's a massive difference in the amount of people you can connect with, where you can put out a message as to why you're connecting. So the answer is yes. These days, you really need to stump up to the premium accounts. And the best one is Sales Navigator, because it just does so much more than all the others. Now, it's going to vary by country as to the monthly cost. But here in Australia, it's about $120 a month as a rough guide. And then it'll just convert on that. Well, really, if you worked off US dollars, so it's probably around 70, 80 US dollars per month. And then it'll be the same price in Europe or say in UK in pounds relative to the US dollar. So, but yes, you kind of need to make that investment these days.
Interesting. I love that you share that, because there is, in fact, such a massive difference just in the connections aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I was testing some of those features, and absolutely the Sales Navigator and just being able to look through more profiles and high quality profiles, because you have now access to that information, will make your job very easy to make better connections and just get in front of the right people, right? Curious as well to know, what are the biggest lies that people have been told of how to grow on LinkedIn?
Good question. So growth encompasses a number of things. Growth in visibility on content, growth in numbers of connections, things like that. So it's very much now, think of it as quality over quantity every single time. You don't need massive amounts of content. There's often people saying you should be posting 5 times a day and things like that. And now on different platforms, that may be the case. I don't know anything about TikTok or Instagram or even Facebook for that matter, but I know 100% about how things work on LinkedIn. So less is more. You don't be over posting, and you should be connecting with people. That's the key thing. If you're on that premium account, you've got access to 200 a week. It's a use or lose. It's not like if you say, I've only sent 100 connection requests this week, so I'll put out 300 next week. If you didn't use the 200, they're gone. Next week, you still only have 200. So one of the key lies, I suppose, is around that you should only connect with people you know and stuff like that. No, you 100% need to have a very strategic outbound connection strategy. And Sales Navigator, as you mentioned, that's your biggest friend. It's your biggest ally, because you can really hone in onto who are those right type of people, right down to what's the size of the companies they're in, locations, all different types of filters that you can use. So you're making sure that not only you're sending 200 connection requests, they're 200 ideal connection requests.
What's the worst experience you have ever had with a connection on LinkedIn?
Probably not necessarily the worst, but I think the funniest that happens is, which comes down to the fact that when it becomes really obvious that people haven't read your profile, that they'll send you pictures or things about, and you mentioned it earlier, people send you not connection requests, but pictures about things you would never be interested in. And so two that really kind of top of mind to me is someone that connected with me and told them how bad my LinkedIn profile was and that they were a LinkedIn expert and would love to help me. And then the second one is that it's someone that sent me something saying, I help accountants do whatever they did. And I actually went to the point of replying and said, well, that's great. I'm not an accountant. Would you like me to introduce you to my accountant? So this thing of where people don't do the homework, don't look at profiles. Often what's happening is that they're using some sort of automation tool or whatever really badly. And there's nothing that will destroy your brand quicker than dumb stuff like that.
That's so funny. It's a LinkedIn expert coming to help a LinkedIn expert into how to do it. That's hilarious. Are there any external softwares or platforms that you use to grow within LinkedIn?
Not a lot. There's some good ones around for sort of analytics on content, things like that. But they can't actually do anything that you can't already get on LinkedIn. They may format it better and position it better and things like that. Some of those can be useful. Always say be very, very careful about. It's against LinkedIn's terms of service to use any sort of external platforms and things like content scheduling platforms are okay. However, LinkedIn has its own internal content scheduler now. You can schedule your content in advance directly on the platform. So there's not really any need to use those external ones anymore. There's ones that, as I said, do a lot of automation, like automatically sending connection requests and things like that. These are really, really dangerous. The number one thing people come to us for saying, oh, I've had my account restricted, is always because they've been using some sort of external, almost always it's because of those type of tools. So I'd say be very, very careful about them.
If you had to grow your LinkedIn from 0 to thousands of connections and followers within 90 days so that you can sell more of your offers in the backend, how would you do it?
Well, for one, I'd say you can't. It's a long play. You can only connect with 200 people a week. So I'm, at best, what's that? It's about 2,500 you could do in 90 days. And of course, not all of those are going to accept. A good acceptance rate is somewhere between 30 and 50%. If you're sitting in there, that's going to do it. But what will and can get you that traction in that time is your content. So your content, the algorithms now don't favor content relative to how many followers or connections you have. Someone with 1,000 followers or connections can get just as much traction as someone with 100,000 followers or 30,000 being the maximum connections. So what I would say is the holy grail of doing that is all around really high value content.
The next section is called this or that. So you just have to choose one or the other. Tea or coffee?
Oh, coffee every time.
Sushi or steak?
Oh, steak.
Expert or jack of all trades?
Expert.
Product or service business?
Service.
CEO or founder?
Founder.
Instagram or LinkedIn?
Oh, I think we know that one. LinkedIn.
LinkedIn or TikTok?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn or Facebook?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn or YouTube?
LinkedIn.
Written or video post?
Ooh, video.
Photos or videos?
Videos.
Short form or long form video content?
Short form.
Newsletters or podcasting?
Oh, say newsletters.
Organic or paid marketing?
Organic.
Personal brand or business brand?
Personal.
Building A talent or hiring A talent?
Hiring.
Premium A talent or multiple cheap C talent?
Premium.
Property investing or shares?
Property.
Property investing or crypto?
Oh, Still property.
Property investing or buying businesses?
Property still.
Building a business or buying a business?
Building.
Passion 6-figure business or stressful 8-figure business?
Passion.
Sales or marketing?
Marketing.
I'm curious to ask you as well about how different is the LinkedIn newsletter feature to just your standard newsletters?
Well, the key there is on a LinkedIn, the newsletter feature allows people to subscribe to it. So even though you can only necessarily have, say, 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, you can have unlimited subscribers to a newsletter. And those subscribers, whenever you post new content on the newsletter, they get a notification on LinkedIn. It's guaranteed to show up in their feed, regardless of whether you get that initial traction. And they get an email from LinkedIn to notify them that you've just released a new newsletter. So I find we get far more traction on our LinkedIn newsletter than we do on, say, our company blog.
Absolutely. What are 3 things that you will tell your 30-year-old self about building a successful business as fast as possible?
Wow. So go back that far. It would definitely be around, hey, the value of a personal brand. I don't think it can be sort of overstated anymore of how, and I don't think back then that it was ever really a thing. I'd say around that niching, just be known and very, very good at doing one thing. And the third would be exactly that. Make sure that you have passion for what you're doing, because business becomes very tiring if it's just purely about money and the day-to-day grind of business. So yeah, that'd be my 3.
How old are you, Adam?
I'm 60 this year, or already turned 60 this year.
What's your biggest business regret?
Probably that, well, I started my first business when I was 24. So I've had 3 major businesses in that period of time. And I think my regret was that I sold each one instead of building it to a point where I could have someone else run it and maintain a equity position in it. So definitely it was, that I built from scratch 3 times, except, I wish I didn't sell the other 2.
You have built and sold businesses from scratch. What are the 3 key lessons that you have gotten out of doing that?
I think the first one is integrity. That if you lose that, then and I know so many people that over those years that lost integrity through whatever reasons, and how damaging that was to their business. I think the second is always around empathy. Just have empathy for people. You can't fix everyone's problems, but if you just are understanding of where often we'll get people come to us that we can't help. We don't just ignore them. We say, look, we can't help you with that, but I know someone who can. Let me introduce you to them. And so we always, helping those people, no matter where the person who can help them or not. And I think the last one would just be always make sure that it's great to have a passion for a business, but not all businesses can make lots of money. So be realistic as to what your needs are from that business, and optimize everything towards those needs. And if it's a business that's not going to, it may be like a side hustle or something that gets you part of the way to where you want to be financially, and that's fine. But just understand what its limitations are and how much time you should be investing into that, as opposed to, say, something else that's going to get you more traction, more revenue.
What about life at 60, almost 60 years old of walking this earth? What's your biggest life regret?
I think it's around the difference between Christmas coming up, which is always a time that you reflect on it, and Christmas always seems to be around consumption of goods and services as opposed to experiences. So when we sit down with we've got 5 children, but only one of them still at home. The rest are all out doing their own thing in the world. And we always make that, what's the biggest present that you want for the year? It's not that. It's say, what's the most impactful experience you would like, as a Christmas present. So I think that's the key, is that life's about experiences, not how much you consume or own or whatever along the way.
What's the worst advice you have ever received?
Don't do that. And I remember often, I've got a business coach that I've worked with for the last 10 years, great guy. And one of the things he always says is never listen to your family from a business perspective, because they'll always be thinking that they're helping you by trying to insulate you from the problems that happen. They don't really understand what the business is all about. So I think the worst advice is ever to listen to your immediate family.
I love that one, by the way. I can relate a lot to that one. What's the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Oh, again, so a business coach, as I mentioned. I also have a mentor who's in his mid-70s now. Amazing man. And I think probably the best advice I ever got from him was all around what's the impact you're going to make in the world. So we have a process where everything we do. So someone purchases one of my books, they come into one of our programs, they come to one of our events, whatever. We make sure there's an impact in the world. So someone gets water for a day, or food, or shelter, or whatever it might be. With lots of different things that we focus on. So he said, at the end of the day, what's your impact going to be? And so we have a goal at the moment. When we started, we had this goal of we were going to make 12 million. Our business was going to create 12 million impacts around the world. And right now we're at 11.5 million of those. So we're almost reached the goal that we set out to from day one, which of course just means when we hit that, which will be early next year, we just have to set a bigger goal. But so that was it. It was all about what's the impact you're going to create.
Adam, thank you very much for everything you have shared today, all the valuable insights. That you guys better be actioning some of the things that Adam has covered here today. If you want to grow your reach, become that authority within your niche, obviously generate more conversions for your business out of this. Thank you for the impact as well that you're having in the world, and for business owners and founders, because we definitely need more people like you just trying to provide world-class service and helping them as well make the world a little bit better. I believe heavily that the fastest way to make the world a little bit better is by helping founders and business owners, entrepreneurs, because those businesses will have a much bigger impact than the individual itself. Adam, where can people find more about you, your services, learn, connect with you?
Well, you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. It's easy to search for, or our company is Prominence Global. So one of those two places, you'll always find us.
If you enjoyed this podcast, if you got some level of value out of it, please, all we ask is share with someone. There is nothing here to sell you. All we ask is that you spread the information so that we can continue to get world-class guests just like Adam. You can find all the links down below to his social media platforms and our platforms. We'll see you on the next episode. Good vibes for everyone. Hey legends, my goal with Founders Playbook is to help 1 million entrepreneurs build successful personal brands and businesses so that they can increase their impact and profits. You can support the mission by simply sharing the podcast with other founders and entrepreneurs. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on social media. Let's get to work.